In 1971, one of the most mysterious crimes in American history took place. A quiet man boarded a commercial airplane, hijacked the flight, demanded $200,000 in cash, and then disappeared into the night. His name, or at least the name he used, was D.B. Cooper. What makes this case so fascinating is that more than 50 years later, no one knows who he really was, where he went, or whether he survived. To this day, the mystery of D.B. Cooper remains one of the greatest unsolved crimes in American history. The story began on November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. A man purchased a one-way ticket for a short flight from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. The flight was Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. The man appeared to be in his mid-40s. He wore a dark business suit, a white shirt, a thin black tie, and carried a briefcase. Witnesses later described him as calm, polite, and completely ordinary. Nothing about him raised suspicion. On his ticket, the name was listed as Dan Cooper. Due to a reporting mistake by journalists, the name D.B. Cooper quickly spread through the media, and it stuck. Shortly after the plane took off, Cooper ordered a bourbon and soda. Then he handed a small note to one of the flight attendants. At first, she assumed it was simply a phone number from a passenger trying to flirt. She slipped the note into her pocket without looking at it, but Cooper leaned closer and quietly said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The flight attendant read the message. It said that Cooper had a bomb in his briefcase. He then opened the case slightly. Inside, she saw what appeared to be red wires, cylindrical objects, and a battery, something that looked very much like an explosive device. At that moment, it was clear he was serious. But strangely, Cooper remained calm the entire time. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten anyone aggressively. Instead, he spoke quietly and politely, almost like a businessman conducting a negotiation. Cooper's demands were surprisingly specific. He asked for three things. First, $200,000 in cash. Second, 4 parachutes. And third, a fuel truck ready to refuel the plane in Seattle. Authorities immediately realized they were dealing with a real hijacking situation. The FBI and airline officials decided to cooperate in order to keep the passengers safe. When the plane landed in Seattle, the money and parachutes were delivered as requested. The $200,000 ransom was packed in a bag using mostly $20 bills. Investigators secretly recorded all the serial numbers on the bills so they could track the money later. Once the demands were met, Cooper allowed all 36 passengers to leave the aircraft safely. Only Cooper and a few crew members remained on board. But the most dangerous part of the night was still ahead. After refueling, the plane took off again. Cooper instructed the pilots to fly toward Mexico City. He also gave very specific instructions for how the plane should fly. He wanted the aircraft to stay at a relatively low altitude of around 10,000 feet. He also ordered the pilots to keep the speed slow and the landing gear partially lowered. These unusual conditions would make it easier for someone to jump out of the aircraft. At some point during the flight, Cooper moved toward the rear of the plane. The aircraft he chose, a Boeing 727, had a rare feature, a rear staircase that could be lowered during flight. Cooper attached the bag of money to himself. Then he took one of the parachutes. Around 8 p.m., somewhere over the forests of Washington State, the crew noticed a sudden change in air pressure. The rear staircase had been lowered. D.B. Cooper had jumped. Outside, the conditions were terrible. It was dark. Heavy rain was falling. Strong winds were blowing. Temperatures were near freezing. And the plane was flying roughly 10,000 feet above the ground. Most experts believe jumping under those conditions would have been extremely dangerous, even for an experienced skydiver. Yet Cooper jumped anyway, carrying a heavy bag filled with cash. And after that moment, he was never seen again. The FBI immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. Agents searched vast areas of wilderness across the Pacific Northwest. Helicopters scanned the forests. Ground teams combed through mountains and rivers. Hundreds of potential suspects were investigated over the following years. But investigators never found a parachute. They never found a body. And they never found Cooper. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Then, almost 9 years later, an unexpected discovery shocked investigators. In 1980, an 8-year-old boy was playing along the banks of the Columbia River. While digging in the sand, he uncovered several bundles of cash. The bills were badly damaged and partially decayed. But when investigators checked the serial numbers, they made a startling discovery. The money matched the ransom bills given to D.B. Cooper. It was the only confirmed piece of physical evidence ever recovered from the hijacking. However, the rest of the money and Cooper himself were never found. Over the next several decades, the FBI continued to investigate countless leads. Many suspects were proposed. Some people even claimed to be Cooper themselves. But none of the evidence ever proved who the real hijacker was. Finally, in 2016, after more than 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. The mystery remains unsolved. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to D.B. Cooper. Did he die during the jump? Did he survive and disappear with the money? Or did he successfully pull off one of the most daring crimes in history? What we do know is this: D.B. Cooper remains the only airplane hijacker in American history who may have gotten away with it.